My name is George Young. I'm the state senator for Senate District 48 in the state of Oklahoma. My district encompasses the northeast, much of the northeast part of Oklahoma City and part of the northwest sector of Oklahoma City. And I just want to share a few things about the first month, I guess a little over a month now that this session has taken place. And it's been a very interesting session. And the first thing I'd like to say is always keep in mind that one of the most important things we can do is to look to the future. And the future would tell us that we ought to be very concerned about the census, the 2020 census. The count date is April the 1st, but there will be some activities prior to April the 1st. Some cards will be mailed out, and then on April the 1st, the count. And even after April the 1st, what will happen is those areas or those individuals who are not counted will receive some attention as to why they were not counted. They will be contacted. And so it is very important that we make black count. It's very important that all of us are counted. Approximately $1,700 is attached to every individual that's counted. We need that money for so many different things, particularly in our district for roads, health care, all the things that impact our lives are connected to the federal funding and the census. So please, please, please make sure that you get counted and all the folk in your house and in your community get counted. Secondly, this is an election year, and November is the election for our President of the United States, and you need to be registered long before that. We've already had one presidential primary here in Oklahoma. There will be another primary for state offices in June, I believe, and then if there's a runoff in those offices, there'll be August. So you need to register now if you want to participate in those elections, particularly the one in June, and then again in November when we will make the final elections for all of those state offices and the President of the United States. I want to share a little bit about this session. I had some very interesting bills that got a lot of attention. At first, had a minimum wage bill that raised the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $10.50 an hour. That's very important. First, you got to understand that any time you raise the minimum wage, there is some impact. But with this minimum wage raise, it would have a positive impact. Most of the folk who receive minimum wage do not work 40 hours a week, one, and most of them have a couple of jobs. And we're not talking about teenagers who have jobs for extra income. We're talking about people who are trying to support families. And so it's very important that we take up this issue of raising the minimum wage. And that's a very important issue because that money turns right back around and goes into the economy. If someone gets a raise to $10.50 an hour, they're not going to open up a 401k. They're not going to open up another savings account. What they're going to do is to spend that money. If any business goes out of business because of raising the minimum wage to $10.50 an hour, don't believe it that it was because of raising the minimum wage. There were some other problems with that business. Raising the wage to $10.50 an hour is a very, I think, good act for us to take in light of second bill that I think is very important, and that is the earned income tax credit, which was rescinded 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago when I was in the House of Representatives. And that bill took away the earned income tax credit, which was signed into law by President Reagan, which was a Republican, and a Republican governor. What it did was it gave folk, and even President Reagan said it when he had started that earned income tax credit, let's give folk who are challenged, let's give folk who are having a tough time, let's give them an opportunity to live a better life, to at least get an advantage. And we give them a break from the income tax brackets, and they would receive X amount of money based on their income. You have to have children living in the household, and according to the number of children, that determined how much you would receive for your earned income tax credit. It was taken away from the citizens of Oklahoma because of a legislature that had some problems with funding and revenue. And when they did that, and it was only like $30 million. So, you know, in our life up here at the Capitol, $30 million is not something that is really difficult. But we were trying to balance the budget on the backs of those who are most vulnerable. And so we need to rescind that. We need to give that back to the people, give those who are struggling and trying to make a difference, just like the raising the minimum wage. We need to give them a break and trying to help them to have a better life. And so that was the second bill. The third bill that I thought was very important was a bill that would look at every piece of legislation that was proposed. And that bill would look at it from the standpoint of how would it impact legislation that would either add enhancing sentencing, or it would create new sentencing for crimes. let me tell you why that's important. We need to look at why our incarceration rates are out of whack, why there's a disparity. Why is it that only anywhere, and I think I saw some new numbers not too long ago, so the black population in Oklahoma is anywhere from 6 to 10%. Now it's raised up quite a bit. 6 to 10% of the population, 7 to 10% of the total population of the state of Oklahoma. But the incarceration rate, not those under probation, but those incarcerated by the Department of Corrections, is anywhere, my estimation was 25-30%, but I've had it even higher as 35%. How can that be? That less than 10% of the population represents 25 or 30% of those who are incarcerated. It's something wrong with Lady Justice, and she's peeping over or under that blindfold that she has. And we need to look at it. This piece of legislation that I propose would look at every bill that is proposed. How would it impact certain communities and certain races? We need to do that, not just to justify our sentencing, but to look at why people of color are being incarcerated at such a high rate. That's the first part. The second part of that is, we're last estimations I got from the Department of Corrections, they were at least 30% under employment levels. They had 30% less folk than they needed. That's a very dangerous situation for our prisons. And then on the other hand, they were 10% over capacity. In other words, they had 10% more prisoners than they had room for. And we're incarcerating folk at a high rate. So we have to be careful. And I would say to you that part of that reason is there's a pushback to 780 and 781, which took low-level possession crimes and made them, instead of felonies, misdemeanors. There's been pushback by this legislature to rescind some of those gains that we made and make it harder now for folk to get out of prison. Now, we had that big release last year, which was a great thing, and it was because of 780. But on the other hand, they've turned around and passed some legislation this year already that takes back what we gave and makes it very difficult for people to get out of prison. Those who need not be in prison, those who need health care, those who are addicted to drugs, those who need help in many areas of their lives. But the other bill that I want to talk about and just get you updated on was the Clara Luper Civil Rights Center. We're asking for about $600,000. I know that it was passed, and all of us know with MAPS 4 that we've got this beautiful plan for the Clara Luper Civil Rights Center here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. It's going to be one of the greatest tourist attractions for the state of Oklahoma. It's going to bring folk from all over the world to Oklahoma City and to see and to celebrate the life of Clara Luper, but not only the life of Clara Luper, but to celebrate the civil rights movement, how it worked in the state of Oklahoma. I'm very excited about it. But with MAPS, it takes a few years for that tax money to get in the hands of the people who need it to get that program started. We need some cash now to help the organization to start getting together, to forming some things, getting some plans done, to do some more fundraising so that this can be a world-class civil rights center. You know, I'm from Memphis, and I go to Memphis quite often, and the Lorraine Motel has had a makeover. It is beautiful, and I saw people from all around. I talked to folk who had come from all over the world to see the Lorraine Motel and the civil rights center that they have there in Memphis. We can have that and have it better. The plans we have on the table are magnificent. We can have a great center. It's connected to the Capitol, connected to Bricktown, connected to all of Remington Park and all of the development in the northeast quadrant of Oklahoma City. That's my district. I'm excited about what's happening in our district, and I know that the Clara Luper Civil Rights Center will be one of the greatest things we can do. And lastly, I had several other bills, but I just want to touch the ones that I'm really excited about. The one is childbirth mortality and women mortality rates. Pregnancy mortality rates. We're having a problem. It seems that the women of color are dying after giving birth at a higher rate than any other demographic. We need to look at that. We need to put some money into it. And so I put forth a bill that would make the State Department of Health on those death certificates make a notation as to why that woman died if she had had a birth within a certain period of time. I think it was 6 months. To look at the things that are causing that. Why is that happening? And we need to have that to take place because it is a health factor. It's a health issue along with all of the other health issues. And so I think it's very important. We've got some great things going on in Northeast Oklahoma City. We've got some great things going on in the state of Oklahoma. But we need to have more activity. I look forward to your input. I look forward to the things that are happening. I appreciate your support. And as I'm out there in the community, please stop me and give me your 2 cents worth so I can take it back and put it into effect at the state capitol. Thank you for allowing me to represent you. I am one of the proudest state senators in the state of Oklahoma and in this country because I represent some of the greatest people in the world. Thank you again for all that you do, and thank you for your support.